Then you want to begin to kind of wriggle your hands, your feet, your fingers, and your toes. And you kind of want to get quite a lot of movement into the fingers and into the hands, as if you're a pianist getting ready for a big concert. And then the same with your feet and with your toes, and see if you can actually move your toes. I know they're not as long and not as movable, but see if you can get some movement in your toes, as if you were to be a painter that paints with their toes. And then begin to also circle the wrists and circle your ankles, getting movement in the extremities. And then you want to reach your arms up and overhead and just take a big yoni leg stretch. Really reaching out of yourself, maybe holding your wrists or lacing your fingers and pointing your toes and really making your whole body long. And then hug everything in. Walk your feet in, hug your knees into your chest, and kind of maybe rock little rocks from left to right and right to left. And then try and really let your head be on the floor, Sasha. So head relaxing, and just tiny little rocks from one side to the other. So it doesn't have to be big, just little movements. That's it. And then little circles over the base of your spine. Tiny little circles one way. And then tiny little circles the other way, and really start quite small. And then reversing once again, and maybe begin to make the circles a little bit bigger. Doesn't have to be super big, just see how it feels and what feels good. And reversing those little circles again, slightly bigger. And then coming to a still point, you just want to let your head slightly roll from left to right and right to left. So just the head. Rolling your head over the back of your head on the floor. And then bring your head back to the center. Keep your big toe joints touching and begin to again make tiny little circles to begin with your knees going outwards and inwards. Barely moving. And then slowly begin to make the circles a little bit bigger. And see if your movements are quite smooth or if they feel really clunky. Maybe even a little bit bigger, if that still feels okay. And then again, bring your knees together, just holding onto your knees and just moving your head from one side to the other. Little head rolls. And bring your head back to the center. And again, little circles with your knees, with your toes together and your knees circling outwards and inwards. Slowly making those circles bigger and bigger. And then you want to let your feet find the floor, let your feet drop down to the ground. Have your heels wide, but your toes slightly pointing in and your knees together. So that your knees, your left knee can rest against your right and your right knee can rest against your left. And you want to stretch your arms out in front of you and lace your fingers. And then just release your shoulders so that they're back resting on the floor. And begin to make little movements with your arms, maybe from left to right, or maybe little circles. And just exploring your arms, your shoulders, maybe even top of your neck. And you can do any kind of little movement or big movement that you feel, and yawn, that you feel kind of helps to massage your shoulders where you're carrying tension and tightness. And maybe the movements have to be quite light and soft, especially if you haven't been practicing for a while. And or maybe you feel like, no, actually, I really want to make some bigger movements. And so anything that feels nice and feels good and doesn't hurt. And yawning is allowed. Yawning is like a natural reset for your body. And then you want to slowly let your circles, if you are circling, come to a still point. And then turn your palms up towards the sky. You're going to reach your arms up and alongside your ears. Maybe even let them come to the ground and then roll your tailbone forward. So you're hollowing out your lower back. Have a little stretch there. And then let your arms widen along the floor. Out to the sides. So your arms are wide now. And your knees are kind of moving away from each other and you're turning your toes out. So that your toes are now wider than the edges of your mat. And your knees are still pointing up to the sky. And then you're going to let your knees roll towards your left, slowly. And then you want to slowly pull your right hip back and let your knees come back towards the center. And then let your knees roll towards your right. And then pull your left hip back and let your knees come back up towards the sky. And you want to just do that for a few rounds. Maybe also rolling your head away from your knees. Really rolling over the back of your head and over the base of your spine. In opposite direction from each other. Then you want to let your knees roll towards your right. You're going to reach your left arm up and alongside your ear and just have a little breath here in that left armpit as you're rolling slowly onto your right side. You might like to bring your right arm underneath your head. And then begin to really stretch out left arm and left leg. So you're kind of on your right side with your right knee bent. And then really extend your left arm and left leg and breathing into the left side of your body. Stay there for a moment and then slowly begin to slide your left foot and left fingers towards one another. Keep your knees and elbows bent. And then let your foot and fingers move away from each other. And I hope that you're getting a sense of this. Imagine there's beautiful crayons attached to your toes and to your fingers, and you're making a really nice kind of semicircle along the floor, and your feet and fingers don't have to touch, but they're moving towards one another and then away from each other. And you just want to have a few little movements like that, and maybe visualize what you're drawing on the floor with your fingers and with your toes. Maybe even slightly reaching behind you and then coming back in towards one another. Once your leg, your left arm and left leg are out and extended, then you're going to slowly roll back onto your spine, very slowly. Let your right knee come back up towards the sky and then pull your left foot back in and left knee is pointing up to the sky and arms are nice and wide. Then you're going to do the same thing to the other side. So first of all, find the edges of your mat again. Your toes are slightly curled over the edges. Your knees are rolling towards your left. Your head is rolling towards your right. You're going to very slowly begin to reach your right arm up and alongside your ear, having a little stretch through that right armpit as you're going along, and maybe into the right ribs as well. And then you want to slowly roll onto your left side and maybe prop your head with your left arm. You can keep your left knee bent and your left elbow bent and rest your head. And then begin to really extend and reach through your right fingers and right toes. Have a breath there. And then you're going to very slowly begin to draw a circle, bringing your right fingers and right toes towards one another along the floor. And imagining you've got really amazing paint or crayons attached to your toes and to your fingers. And you're making a little drawing on the floor. So your fingers and your toes are not lifting away from the floor. And they're coming in towards one another and then expanding and reaching out. And you can just do however many and however fast or slow, but it's quite nice to move slow. And in whatever position you think you get the most benefit. Let's do one last one. And then you want to slowly extend your right leg and right arm back alongside your ear. And really lengthen, and then very slowly again, slow motion, rolling onto your back. Let your left knee come back up towards the sky, your arms widen, walk your feet back in, check where you are on your mat. And then begin to walk your feet in towards your pelvis, your arms down by your sides. You're going to slowly lift your pelvis up towards the sky. And then you're going to slowly lower the pelvis back down. And as your pelvis connects with the floor, you want to let your toes and balls of the feet curl off the floor. I'll just take off my socks. And then you're going to lower your balls of your feet and toes back down and begin to lift the pelvis back up and off the floor. Then you're going to lower your pelvis back down slowly. And then again, lifting your toes and balls of the feet off the floor. So you're really on your heels. And then slowly begin to lift pelvis back up. Maybe even begin to lift the heels up as your pelvis is up. And then rolling back down slowly, lowering the pelvis. Take a moment to come really onto your heels. And one last one. Again, rolling through, lifting pelvis. Maybe even lifting heels. Coming up onto your tiptoes. And then slowly coming back down. And then reconnecting pelvis to the floor, feet down on the ground. Super nice. Then you want to have both your feet really spreading down into the ground. You're going to lift your pelvis a tiny little bit off the floor. I'll take my jumper off so you can see a little bit better. And then you're going to imagine your feet are the base and your shoulders, ribs are the other base, and your pelvis is like a hammock, and it's just going to do little movements, maybe from side to side. Maybe there's a kind of a little circle or a little figure of 8 in there. And so your pelvis is like a hammock, and your feet and your shoulders are like a base. And you're just going to find little movements, oscillating movements, maybe from side to side, or maybe like a little figure of 8. And just having a little explore there. And your pelvis doesn't have to be high off the floor, but it's just kind of swinging from one side to the other. And exploring any kind of little movements. And then you want to press your arms down, your feet down, lift your pelvis really high. Stay here, a little bit of a stable base. You want to begin to press your left foot into the ground and maybe see if you can pull your right knee in towards your chest. And then slowly lower the right foot back down and change. And your left knee is going to pull in towards your chest. And you're just going to do that for a few rounds, lowering the left and pulling in the right. And then lowering the right and pulling in the left. Whilst your pelvis is off the floor, a couple more rounds like that. Really good for core and for lower back issues to help stabilize. And I spent about 5 hours driving yesterday, so I really need to reset. And then maybe you guys need to too. Then slowly release and then come back down and begin to hug your knees into your chest. And just rock from side to side or little circles over the base of your spine. And then you want to grab behind your thighs and you can rock forwards and backwards for a few rounds, or you can roll onto one side if that feels better. Just, you guys can keep rocking for a little bit. Rock and rock. And then you want to come up to sit with your legs crossed. And maybe let's start with the left shin in front of the right. So crossing left shin in front of the right. And then you want to rest your wrists on your knees with the palms kind of facing up. And then you're going to roll your arms kind of inwards and at the same time round your spine and kind of retreat backwards. And then you're going to roll through your spine, lengthen out your spine, and at the same time externally rotate your arms. So that almost everything is kind of rotating and spiraling and blossoming and opening. Maybe imagine yourself to be like a flower, kind of curling and unfurling and opening. Arms, head, elbow and crown of the head moving. At the same time, opening and curling round. And then begin to lengthen your spine back up. You're going to walk your hands a few steps forwards, maybe, see how that feels. Having a few breaths here. Slowly coming back up to sit. And then bring your left hand to the left side of your seat and a little bit away from your seat. And then just check that your left shoulder is down and not up here. So you want to have kind of a long neck and space between left ear and left shoulder, bending your left elbow, and then maybe leaning your upper body towards your left. And you can either stay here, maybe even have your hand on the right side in between your ribs and in between your hip. And then slowly coming back up. And then once again, walking your hands a little bit further forwards, maybe a little bit deeper. Then place your right hand on top of your left and have a breath there. Then once again, coming back to the center, walking your spine back up. Again, left hand a little bit away from your seat. Left elbow bent, space between left ear and left shoulder. So not like that, but trying to have that space. So just check with yourself. And then either right hand here on hip or in between the ribs and the hips, or with the arm reaching up and kind of leaning towards your left. So stretching out right side. And then slowly coming back up. And then place your right hand on your left knee and spiral and look over your left shoulder. Have a breath there. And then coming back to the center, you're going to place your hands to the floor behind you, pressing your knees down and again lifting your pelvis up and away from the floor, maybe even coming high up. And then slowly coming back down and changing the cross legs. So now your right shin is in front of your left. And this time, you're going to hold on to your knees. You're going to round your spine and really hold on to your knees, pulling back. And then this time, keep holding on to your knees And let your chest stick up forwards, puffing out your chest forwards and then rounding your spine, going backwards. So as if your whole chest is kind of moving backwards and forwards, opening through the front rib cage and through the sternum and through the breastbone, and kind of creating some space for our heart. Going forwards and backwards. After your last time forwards, you're going to slowly lengthen your spine back up. And then again, little steps forwards. Not too far. Have a little breath here. Walking your hands back in. Your right hand next to your seat, a little bit away from your seat. Right arm, elbow bends. Space between earlobe and shoulder. Begin to lean into your right and into that right hand. And left hand here maybe on hip or in the space in between the hip and the ribs. Leaning your body to your right and stretching out the whole left side, and then begin to lengthen up again, finding neutral, walking your hands forwards, maybe a little bit further forwards. Breath. Then placing your left hand on top of your right. Have a breath there. Hands back to the center, walk your hands back in. One more time, right hand to the right, right elbow bends, space between earlobe and neck, begin to lean to your right, left hand, maybe here in between the ribs and the hip, or left arm up and alongside your ear and leaning to your right. And then slowly coming back to the center. Slowly bring your left hand to your right knee and spiral and look around your right shoulder to the back. Back to the center. Slowly, hands to the floor behind you, knees down, pelvis lifts. Big breath in. Slowly release back down. And then coming onto all fours, into hands and knees. Give yourself, and your placement doesn't have to be perfect at all for this. You're going to just have a little wiggle with your pelvis, with your tailbone, with your crown of your head, with your shoulders, hips, wiggling out whatever feels good. Maybe even kind of little rocks or little shakes. Then you want to tuck your toes at the back and kind of bring your pelvis towards your heels and have a little stretch there into the backs of your feet. And then you're going to untuck your toes at the back. You're going to walk your hands in so that your hands are underneath your shoulders and your knees are underneath your hips. You're going to press your hands down, knees and tops of your feet down, and round out your spine. Head and tail hanging down, as if you're making a little portal, I guess, maybe, for someone to crawl through. And then again, you're going to tuck your toes and you're going to slowly shift your pelvis towards your heels and have a little stretch there into the backs of your feet. And then you're going to slowly again round your spine, press your feet, your knees, your hands down into the ground and really round your spine out. Last one, tuck your toes, untuck your pelvis, and this time maybe walk your hands a little bit further forward and have a little stretch here through the front chest and stretch or wiggle. And then you want to come forwards and lie down on your belly. So you want to tuck your chin into your chest and you're going to extend your arms forwards. You want to untuck your toes so that your feet are long. So the toes are still, oh God, I get so confused now. But the tops of your feet are pressing down into the ground. So the parts of your feet that you normally can look at are pressing down into the floor. You're going to tuck your chin into your chest. And you're going to lift your upper body up towards the sky. And then you're going to lower upper body back down. And we're just going to do 2 more of those. Lifting up, upper body lifts up. Chin tucks in. And then upper body lowers down. 1 more, lifting. Then you're going to stay up. You're going to bend your elbows, make fists, and pull your elbows in towards your waist. And then you're going to extend your arms forwards. You're going to lower the body back down. You're going to take a breath, lifting up on the exhale. Then you're going to pull your elbows in, making fists. Feel your neck lengthening. Hold it there. Extend your arms forwards and then slowly release back down. 1 more of those, lifting up slowly. As you exhale, bring your elbows in, make fists, long neck. Extend arms forwards, chin tucks in, and then lower back down. Super nice. Tuck your toes. And then we want to come into a little baby downward dog. And what do I mean by baby? You want to keep your knees slightly bent to begin with, and you want to maybe just tread through your feet a little bit. Stretching out the backs of your legs. Then you want to keep walking your feet forwards towards the front. Little steps. Get your feet really underneath yourself. And then let everything kind of hang forwards, maybe holding onto your elbows. Keep your knees bent and just stay here for a little bit. Body soft, head hanging. Give your head a little nod, little shake. And then hands onto your knees. Begin to lengthen out your spine. And then coming up to stand. And maybe you kind of want to tread through your feet a little bit. And then each time, stepping them a little bit wider. And then I quite like to have my toes slightly turned out. And then just kind of exploring, shifting weight from one leg to the other. Maybe you want to get your hands near your knees. Maybe really close your eyes and just Getting that inner thigh slightly stretched out. If you feel ready for it, you can also walk your fingers to the floor and kind of like a little spider creating her web, moving, weaving, exploring. Maybe there's also little kind of circular movements in the pelvis, like we did in the hammock shape. And so you're kind of just oscillating from one side to the other, maybe even your upper body, and maybe your leg that you want to straighten doesn't straighten fully. But maybe you're letting your upper body kind of twist and tangle from one side to the other, making also little adjustments with your feet, maybe exploring turning one foot out more and the other one more in. Maybe slowing down a little bit, maybe even staying somewhere if you found a good stretch that isn't painful, but that feels like a good way to release. And so really moving at your own pace and noticing when you need to move, and when it feels good for you to stay. And then we want to slowly begin to make the feet a little bit closer together. Bring the feet closer together, not make them. Bring them closer together. And then you can either do this with your heels completely off the floor, or some of you may get the heels on the floor and coming into a squat and really unspecific. So kind of feel what works for you well. Play around between kind of not being with the heels on the floor and maybe exploring, trying to get the heels towards the floor, even if they don't touch the floor. And then once you've found a good position, bringing your elbows to your inner knees and kind of lengthening out your spine. And so considering that this would have been the position that we would have spent most of the time probably in before we discovered chairs. If you see people in the indigenous tribes, probably spending quite a bit of time here. And then you want to slowly walk your hands forwards. Begin to turn your knees in, coming onto all fours. And again, just taking a moment to really wiggle out. Maybe even shake out, or just little kind of curling movements. And then with your toes together, but your knees slightly wider, bring your pelvis towards your heels. And maybe release your forearms and forehead on the floor. And then if it feels good, you can also do the little rocking here, but this time rolling with your forehead over the floor And letting your face kind of roll towards the left and then towards the right, whilst rolling over your brow, your forehead. And then one final little movement. You want to come back onto all fours. And you're going to slide your right hand in between your left hand and left knee, down towards the floor, as near to the floor as you can. Extend your arm towards the left until your head finds the floor. And then little rolls over the side of your head, so over the side of your skull here, by turning your head slightly in and then letting your head roll towards, face roll towards the left, and just doing that for a few rounds. Letting your face roll towards the left and keeping it there. Stay there and breathe to the right shoulder blade at the back. Then release, coming back onto all fours, like you did, little curls, little shakes, little arches, or just any kind of little wiggles, little moves. And then sliding your left hand in between your right hand and left and right knee. Bringing your left arm all the way over towards the right. Let your head rest on the floor, and then doing the same thing, let your head kind of turn into yourself and then let it roll back towards the right. I'm doing a few of these, rolling in. Stay with your head to the right. Stay for a breath there. Breathing into the left shoulder blade. And then coming back onto all fours, little curls, little wiggles. And then coming to lie down flat on your back. And take a moment to really just soften. Then you want to gently wiggle your hands, your feet, your fingers, and your toes. Take a big yoni-like stretch. Before taking your time and making your way up to a sit. Keeping your eyes closed whilst you get cozy, sitting on the sofa, on a chair, on the floor. And then either bringing your hands together in front of your heart, or maybe even hands resting over your heart. Maybe even bowing your head to your heart. Take a moment to connect with the energy of your heart. Rather than how your heart feels, connect to the energy that your heart is sending out all the time. And see if you can connect with the idea of empathy and compassion for yourself. So that heart energy goes in a loop back around towards yourself. Letting go of certain things that we might have told ourselves for many years. Our lack of self-worth. Our doubts. Acknowledging that they were there for a reason. Giving them space to be a part of. But allowing your compassion and your empathy for yourself to be redirected back inwards. Forgiving yourself. Take a deep breath in and out. And then very slowly open your eyes when you feel ready to open them, really taking your time, maybe take in the surroundings before you first. Namaste, lovely ones.